Hey guys, welcome back to another Friday with DP. I'm Drew.
I'm Phil.
This weekend we're headed to Utah to meet our friends Don and Josh. They're taking us to a couple of national parks around Moab, Canyonland National Park, and Arches National Park. We headed south about 4 hours from Salt Lake City through forests, prairie fields, and desert landscapes to the town of Moab. Don drove us straight to our campsite within Hunter's Canyon off Cane Springs, a dirt road. To get to Hunter's Canyons, we drove alongside the Colorado River, past canyon walls and rock formations. It was such a cool experience camping right next to these huge rock walls. You can really hear everything echo. After setting up camp, we headed straight to our first site, the infamous Corona Arch. The start of the trail is about a 20-minute drive from town. It's about a 20-minute hike at moderate pace, just over a mile, and about 400 feet gain in elevation the whole way up. With a starting elevation at 4,000 feet, you're floor to sea level, boys. DP may have had a little bit of a hard time hiking and breathing. We went in late August, so it averaged about 90 degrees in the daytime and cooled off to about 70s. Hopped back in the car and headed towards Canyonland National Park, but on the way we stopped by to check out some petroglyphs off the Utah State Road 279. Getting back in the car, we head onward to Canyonland National Park to a few spots like Mesa Arch and Grand Viewpoint. All the points of interest here didn't require a hike, just more of a 5-minute walk. It was mostly driving from one side to another. Day 2, we head to Arches National Park. It's about a 10-minute ride from town, but don't be surprised if there's a line to get into the entrance gate. We waited for about 20 minutes, but it can be as long as an hour, depending on how busy it is. Our friends have annual passes, so they were able to get us in for free, otherwise it's $30 per vehicle. first stop, the Park Avenue Trail, named after the road in New York City. It is 1 mile long on the canyon floor where you can hike right next to balanced rocks, massive fins, and skyscraper rocks that resemble the skyscraper buildings of New York City. We were lucky we only had to hike the trail one way. John dropped us off and drove the car to the end point so we didn't have to hike back. This made our hike all downhill. Thanks, Don. The trail, we hopped in the car and headed to Balance Rock. On the way, we passed by the rock pinnacles with its interesting shapes. Once at Balance Rock, we did a short, maybe quarter-mile loop around Balanced Rock. That was an easy hike, but it was a bit crowded. Even the parking lot was completely full. There are many other Balanced Rocks in the park. This is just the iconic one, probably the biggest one. They are formed because of the different layers of the rocks. The boulder on top is an Estratus sandstone, which erodes away slower than the pedestal below, which is made of mud rock. The Balance Rock had a partner named Chip Off the Old Block back in the 70s, but the mudstone below eroded away for the sandstone on top to fall down. After walking around Balance Rock, we hopped back in the car and headed to a spot with many sites, all in the same area. On the way, we passed the parade of elephants. I thought it was cool that a bunch of rock sculptures look like a bunch of elephants. Traffic at this site was pretty bad, so we made the best of it. This next stop had the windows, both north and south, the turret arches, and the double arches. To the last stop for the day, we passed by Owl Rock and Fiery Furnace. Apparently, Fiery Furnace is a maze of rocks and should only be done with a park ranger. That one looks way cool, and I definitely want to do that next time, but for this trip, I'm already exhausted. The last stop is Landscape Arch. To me, it looks more delicate than Delicate Arch itself, but I didn't name it. Headed back to town for dessert and dinner, obviously in that order. After dinner, Donna wanted to off-road a bit, so we drove up to Onion Creek and attempted to drive the canyon. I'm actually not quite sure how far we went, and it certainly did not take 9 minutes to drive that. It probably took us about half an hour each way. was what I like to call Tractor Arch. On our last and final day, we headed back to Arches National Park for the most iconic monument, Delicate Arch, the same arch you see on the Utah license plate. It's a not-so-easy hike, about a mile and a half each way, and a 500 feet climb in elevation, but it's so worth it. That's all we can physically do in 3 days, but I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed filming and making it. Until then, see you next Friday.